What about 11? I just want to go back to wind shifts and things like that momentarily because it actually affects the starting thing as well. I was very good at drawing these lovely curved lines when we were talking about wind shifts. I didn't really explain how we got them. If we look at the compass going from north to 360 over here, thereabouts. This is going to be very good to scale. If you look at a normal sea breeze, let's say 12 o'clock, time over here, 12 o'clock. You then take a compass reading, and you get a breeze of say 235. Normal sea breeze. At 12:10, we take another one. It's got a 225. 12:20. Another one. And we'll be out here to roughly 235 again. If we're in a sea breeze situation, varies about 10 degrees about every 10 minutes on a normal sea breeze day. Consequently, if we're looking at an easterly or a land breeze or a system breeze, which is much deeper, you know, it could be 10,000 feet deep for that matter. This sea breeze we're looking at is really only 2,000 or 3,000 feet deep from the ground up. If we look at an easterly, well then that can probably, you know, do things like this. And if you sail overseas where they sail in system breezes all the time, you've really got to be on the ball, because if you get this wrong and head in the wrong direction off the start line, you'll find yourself in the very back of the fleet by the time you get to the top mark, and looking extremely sad. If you get it right, you'll be in the top 2 or 3 around the top mark, and you know, that makes it much easier from there on. The other thing, you know, you really think about the starts is how important are they to your end result. If it's 10% of the race, 20% of the race, whether you get a good start or not. It does depend somewhat on the competition. In a world championship or, you know, something of that ilk competition, it's probably about 40 or 50% of the race. If you're not in the top 4 or 5 around the first mark, in other words, you haven't got a really good start and controlled the fleet, you're going to be history. In club competition, where fortunately there's boat speed differences and you can, you know, actually gain a few places, it's probably about 20%. If you think about how you sail, you'll find that, you know, every now and again you'll get a good start, and boy, all of a sudden you're first or second around the top mark, and it's relatively easy from there on, not hard. And the opposite of that is when you get a bad start, you're second last, and boy, that's about where you're going to stay. Yeah. I know. Very not true. Good. And we've all been there. Yeah. I know. I've got a note here that says, if you want to get a good start, do not copy me. I'm about the world's worst starters, have been all my life, and probably still am. You know, to get a good start, it's an art form, and some people are much better at it than others, and I've never been good at it. When we're looking at this S-bend, a little thing to bear in mind is the higher the number, by the number you've got on your compass bearing, you should be on starboard tack. Lower the number, you should be on port. And that'll work all the way around the compass. It's just simply that way it is. If you're looking at what most of us have sailed on, which is the river, you take off from Netherlands Yacht Club or somewhere about there, and you turn straight across to the opposite bank. You tack up the shore, you get up to Brick Landing or Lucky Bay or wherever you're going up there. Two reasons why you do that. One is you get a slight westerly shift off the shore here, so you get a slight lift out of here. When you get across here, you get a big lift off the bank all the way up the bank. And every now and again it doesn't work, and a bit like Bob today when he was sailing down Brent, you just don't get nothing. It's frustrating as hell, but that's the way it works. Alright, starts. Well, you ever wondered why you get disqualified when you're over the line early at the start without a protest? Unless the race is under umpires or judges, you can't get disqualified out of a race unless someone's protesting. Or close committee's protesting, but there has to be a hearing. The start's completely different. It all comes back to the definition of start. So I'll quote, because I think it makes when I find it. Yeah, if you think about this definition, it says a boat starts when her hull, having been entirely on the pre-side of the start line, or after her starting signal, and having complied with rule 30.1. Now rule 30 is the round the ends rule, black flag rule, that sort of thing. And she crosses the line in the direction of the first mark. The reason you get disqualified for being over the line early in starts is quite simply because you haven't started. The definition says you start when you're behind the line at the time of the gun. If you're over the line, you're not behind the line, therefore you haven't started under the definition. So the race committee just writes you down as OCS on course side. That's it. Don't come back. You're done. Right, a few do's and don'ts on starting lines. The age-old thing that you should never do is barge. You come whistling in here. Our boat's here. Good enough to get through there without touching anything, that's fine. Well, windward boat. Under Rule 11, you've got to give way to all the boats down the leeward of you, your windward boat you must keep clear, so you can't do that. Frustrates good sailors absolutely out of this world, is have someone come up and make a start by doing that. So, not on. A few funny things about starts. If you happen to start early, let's assume you're over the line early. After the gun goes, you have absolutely no rights. So if you start early, let's assume there's a whole row of boats here. You start here, called over, you have no rights to go back. You must give way to every other boat. And that includes, there's usually some other boats back there as well. So if you slow down, you're fouling the boats behind you. You try and tack, you're fouling the boats above you. Pull away, you're fouling the boats below you. So when you're over early, you've got to be super duper careful about how you get out and get back. Very expensive being over early. The other interesting rule which happens in major competition, when eventually most major competitions in the last couple of heats get down to a match race between a couple of boats. With a start boat here, with an anchor line out here. You can trap the person you want to beat between here and here. You've got him nailed in there. He has rights over the boat, that's an obstruction, but he has absolutely no rights over the anchor line. So if you nail him in there, you've got him by the literally well and truly. He's got nowhere to go without fouling you or hitting the committee boat, either which means he's got to do a 360 or 720 in big boats, which is all, makes it very easy to defend your position. Something you need to work out when you go to start a race. Hopefully you've been keeping your check on the breeze, so you know what's coming in the next 10 or 15 minutes. You also should have a fairly good idea of where the breeze is up the course. That's where you want to be. You should have a fairly good idea of when the lift is coming, the next lift is coming, because that's obviously you need to be on the right tack to get that. The problem is if you start at the windward end, here, there's usually a lot of congestion here. The problem is if you need to go right, you've got to start there. The only guy I've ever seen get away without doing that was Paul Elstrom. When he was sailing tornadoes, we were sailing in North America, which is very much a right-handed course down there. And the first boat to get on the port tack and get out of the start line usually got up to the top mark in very, very good shape. Elstrom port tacked a fleet of about 80 odd tornadoes. He made us by about half a boat length. We'd like to have nailed him, but we couldn't. And it was one of the bravest things I've seen in my life. But he got out there, and I think he was first or second round the top mark, just because he got a good start. So if you want to go right, this is the place for you. Unless the line is so biased that you can get away with the port tack stroke.
That's what Lloyd does.
Sorry?
That's what Lloyd does.
Oh.
tack starts are very, very good, but it does leave you very open to nasty people like me, because I have a great habit of starting on starboard about there. If it's a port tack start, I will go down there. If my timing is really, really good, I'll force this bloke to tack. So he either hits the mark or the guy behind him hits the mark, which leaves a nasty mess. I'll go through, I'll tack, and I'll be off with the bite. So port tack starts are very good, but they are fraught with danger. It's a dangerous thing to do down there.
Noel Roberts was the champion.
What?
Noel Roberts used to be the champion.
No, I'm a very good port tack starter.
And sailing backwards.
Well, they've stopped that.
Warren, there's one question I'd like to make. I mean, I've noticed now that, especially now the 95 fleet is so big, the starts are an absolute shambles. So who calls people that are fouling? Because I reckon half the yachts are fouling each other. So is that up to the PRO?
No, look, sailing is a self-regulated field of sport.
Right.
We are meant to regulate ourselves,
Right.
which means that if someone fouls you, you protest them.
And as to that rule of the people that break the line having no rights, it's just ignored by 90% of the people. They just come back and just charge straight through the fleet. Well, that's my observation.
If you can do that and not foul anybody, that's fine. But you know, if you foul somebody, you're done. You've got to do it. Not only do you have to go back, but you've got to do a 360 as well.
But no one's calling it.
Well, that's up to the individual. I mean, PROs will call it if they see it, but they've got to be 100% certain of what they see, which you often aren't. There was a collision today, I thought there was, but I didn't call it because I wasn't absolutely 100% sure. So, you know, it makes it difficult. And, you know, look, if, if someone fouled you, you yell. And, you know, it's something we all should be doing is, you know, when you make a foul, go and do your turn. There should be no need on most occasions for people to yell at you. You know, you know full well when you've hit someone port and starboard, or, you know, haven't given them enough mark round the room or whatever. You know, just go and do your turn and, you know, be nice about it. Starts. Okay. Starts are very simply a competition to see who can hold their boat stationary for the longest period. You go back and watch a few of the 1 metre world championships and that sort of thing, you'll see all the noted sailors are all lined up here for quite a long while. They're very good at doing that and not going forwards. Quite simple. I used to make all my guys, if we were doing something, you know, and I was coaching, I had half a dozen boats there. I wasn't talking to this particular guy, the rest should have been up at a mark, practicing exactly that. It's a practice thing. In tornadoes, they've now put a rule against it, but in tornadoes you used to be able to, by backing the sails, the main and third, you'd make the boat sail backwards. Because it was better, man, it wasn't a problem. And as you sail backwards, you build up speed, then you flick it up to windward. So what happened is you would be the one that didn't sag sideways here, and you would stay there. This poor devil would come along and he had nowhere to go. The only way out was to go around and come around and do it again. So the longer you can stay stationary, the better start you'll get. And, you know, for that reason you should be practicing that, so you're very, very, very good at it.
I've stayed stationary on the start for about 10 minutes.
Well, it's very easy with 95s. You just flick them up and get them in irons and they just sit there.
I'm with you, Dave. What do we do now?
Welcome to 95 sailing. When we talk about Rule 30, when I talk about a triangle, we have a start mark here, forward mark here, windward mark up here somewhere. The area, once you get into I flag or black flag, the area you're not allowed to go into that. We had a guy at the Nationals one stage, came through, he went over, and back, and started. And I called him over the line because we're under the, I think we're under I flag around the end. I called him over the line, he said, oh, I wasn't, and then the penny dropped for him. He said, yeah, it's all right, I understand. Because he hadn't gone back around the ends, he was still over the line. So, you know, when it's around the ends, you've actually got to physically sail out of this triangle, around the ends, and start there.
So you can correct yourself if you're over the line with a black flag by going around the end.
Sorry?
You correct yourself by going around the end if you go across a line with a black flag. Yeah.
With a black flag, you go home.
Okay, that's yeah.
You're disqualified with a black flag. It's
So that doesn't occur.
no, it doesn't. If it's a black flag, that's it. If you get into that area there with a black flag, you go home. That's the end of the race for you. Which can be a lot worse when you're sailing overseas because they have a black flag that applies for the day. So if you go out to the first race of the day and actually do that, you don't start for the rest of the day.
See, the I flag is around the end.
I flag's around the edge, yeah. So be very careful of that.
Bloody tiger.
It normally brings a big fleet very much into line, flying a black flag.
Warren, in our case, generally though, if you are across the line, you can just dip back over it and out again.
Yes, well there's if you any number of ways of getting a good start. There's a whole stream of boats here like this, for example. You wait up here, come round and sail down here looking for a gap like here, and off you go. That's fine. The other thing you can do, of course, is to hang around here, go around the top, and just get down to the line, and away you go. No problem with all of that. The only problem is knowing where the start was. Which isn't a problem if you're near the shore and you're actually sailing in big boats, because you can take sights down the start line, so that might be a radio tower or whatever on the shore. So you know that as long as you're not in front of that, you're okay on the start line. You can do it with a compass. We used to do it with a compass as well, particularly when you're miles out to sea. But the problem with this is finding the slot. The other interesting thing about starts is there is no preferred course before the start. So if you come through here, rip up there, and luff this guy up a bit, is got to go. The only favour in all of this is he's got to give you room and opportunity to do it. So as soon as someone comes in to do that, you're aware of it, you stick your bum out. So, you know, he's got to move down a bit further away from you, and you know, it's just a matter of giving yourself a bit more room. Because what you want at the start is you want to be able to get off the line, sail your own course, be it up or down or whatever. You know, you just need a bit of room. We used to come off the line, I just say to Brian, I want you low, I want you low, I want you low, I want you high, come up. And he would just sail the boat in that. The idea was to get out of here and allows you to just sail normally without having to worry about boats right up behind, underneath you or over the top of you. The other thing that happens with big fleets.
Warren, can we talk about where there is a windward and a leeward boat on the start line, and the leeward boat gets up inside the windward boat's boom?
That's a good question.
So you've got a windward boat here, a leeward boat coming in here, boom's hanging out here because he's got he ends up in there, is that right?
Yep. There's clearly the windward boat.
Well, clearly this boat hasn't given this person room or opportunity to avoid the contact. So they're absolutely dead wrong. One, they're overtaking boat. Two, they haven't given the windward boat room and opportunity to keep clear. You know, they're nailed on about 4 different rules.
That happens with us guys,
yes,
run meters and TF95s quite a lot.
It's just bad sailing.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't do it. The other thing that happens in big fleets, not so much here, but you know, in big boats, you get a fleet knock. Let's say you've got 80 tornadoes, something like that, lined up at the start. The wind comes around and gets bent like so. It doesn't just bend here where the boats are, it actually starts bending back here. So you end up with what's called a fleet knock. One, the breeze is less strong, so that it's lost some strength. Two, it's a knock because you know the breeze is bent. It is extremely effective. We got an extremely good start in a Tornado World Championship heat, and it was a very good start because I had a very anxious look back at the committee boat to see if they were going to fly code flag X and pull us back. But needless to say, we actually came through the fleet. We got to about maybe 200 metres out from the start, and I just turned around to Brian and I said, we've won this. We were probably sailing 1 or 2 degrees higher than the rest of the fleet. We were in 2 or 3 knots of extra breeze, and we just disappeared. It was all over. As simple as that. So be very careful sailing in very big fleets. Don't get involved in this. You need to get clean air. Regardless of whether your starts are good or bad, the thing you really need is clean air. So if you start at this end of the line, start at this end of the line, up here, you have greater options starting further down the line. If you've got 20 boats above you, need to tack out, it's not going to be very easy. You're going to take a lot of sterns to get out there. Whereas if this guy is getting gassed by the person that started here, giving him a hard time, he can just tack away and he's instantly got clean air. Even if he only goes 20-30 metres and tacks back, it would be much better than keeping on going and with gas that this guy's going to hit him. So, a few decisions before you start. What side of the course do I need to be on? If you want to go left, you can start down here and just go for it. We have a mate in Hobie's 16s that we used to sail against, and he used to be very famous for sailing fairly low and very fast. He used to come off the start line down about here, and he would just disappear over the Applecross bank. And you think he's gone, and he'd tack with the lift up the Applecross bank, and all of a sudden he'd be back with you again. But you know, it was very effective. So if you need to do that, this is where you need to be. If you need to go right, then you've got to be here. And it even pays sometimes, if it's a right-hand course, be the second or third boat here. The reason for that is the first boat can't tack, because the second boat can squeeze up and squeeze on him, and he's on starboard. Second boat has the same problem if you're good at it, come in here as well. So the third boat will be the first boat to tack, because the fourth and fifth boat won't be able to hang up there. There's just too much dirty air at this stage, so they just won't be able to hang there. So, you know.
I think in our case, visibility is a big thing as well. By doing that, you have greater visibility of your boat than being in the middle of the fleet.
Yeah, by all means. I mean, if you can get out of the pack and sail your own course, it's much easier. Switch into the line. The simple thing I do is I just sail down the line on the breeze, and you can judge whether that boy's further away than that when you do it from both ends. So, if you come round there and you're heading up there, well, obviously that's where you want to start. And similarly, if you come round here and you're heading up there, well, that's where you want to start. When we're sailing bigger boats, we used to do compass bearings and all sorts of things to know which end of the line to start at. We don't have that option here. It's just all visual. So, go and have a play at it. Feel which end is the best end.
Warren, there's some sort of calculation about how long the start line should be according to the number of boats?
Yeah, I think it's 1.5 times the
Is it?
1.5 times the number of boats times the length of the line.
Okay.
Roughly works.
Man, you dropped your glasses.
Oh, one other point, interesting thing to do about starts is you can actually use your rudder quite violently to change tacks and things like that. And you can use your rudder quite violently before the start to slow you down. So if you've got maximum movement on your rudder, you can just about get your rudder out, 90 degrees of the boat. And if you're mooching in here alongside a couple of boats, and you think, oh, I might be a bit early. If you slow down, all of a sudden, it's not you that's going to get pinged, it's the other bloke. So you can use your rudder a lot if you want to slow down. You can't use it to speed up, but you can use it to slow down. That's about it. Any questions?
Warren, could you just comment on barging at the start?
Yeah, we spoke about that, yeah.
Well,
It's not on. Yeah.
no, yeah.
The one I think John
One of the things, and you'll often see me do it because I'm such a poor starter. You can, if you've got a 20 foot, 30 foot, 40 foot, 50 foot, 60 foot, 70 foot, 80 foot, 90 foot, 100 foot, 200 foot, 300 foot, 400 foot, 500 foot, 600 foot, 700 foot, 800 foot, 900 foot, 1000 foot, 2000 foot, 3000 foot, 4000 foot, 5000 foot, 6000 foot, 7000 foot, 8000 foot, 9000 foot, 100 foot, 200 foot, 300 foot, 400 foot, 500 foot, 600 foot, 700 foot, 800 foot, 900 foot, 1000 foot, 2000 foot, 3000 foot, 4000 foot, 5000 foot, 6000 foot, 7000 foot, 8000 foot, 9000 foot, 100 foot, 200 foot, 300 foot, 400 foot, 500 foot, 600 foot, 700 foot, 8000 foot, 9000 foot, 100 foot get to the stage where here, and all of a sudden there's 30-40 seconds to go. You can have a real good guess that, you know, I'm going to be over the line here. I can't possibly not sail that far in 40 seconds. Make the decision early, get out of there, back and round, and it's amazing how often you'll find a hole. You know, maybe not where you were, but you know, a little bit further down the line. But you need to make the decision early so you've got time to do all this. And all of a sudden, you're not in big trouble. You know, it comes. You know, you'll actually find a spot to get a reasonable start. Won't be the best start for the fleet, but it'll be, you know, good enough to get you reasonably clean air.
About running down the line.
Well, we said you're just not allowed to do it. You know, you can't do that and force other people to have to avoid you.
Well,
Windward boat,
What
got to
I'm
give way.
thinking of, when we're all sitting there like that, it gets close, and so top boat moves down.
He's wrong. I mean, it just, you know, you sail in international competition and you just get roughed. They often plant a jury boat right about here. All the jurors have a video camera. They just sit there and go click. Goodbye. And so, you know, it's actually very well policed overseas. You know, they just disqualify. You know, once you're under a jury, they have the right to disqualify you straight away.
Can we have
So
a jury boat out there?
Yes.
Cleaned up the start line.
So essentially, Warren, if you really like weather and you've got all the boats packed up down the line, right, no one's actually barging, but they can't really manoeuvre. So actually, the boat on the leeward end of the line just protests, and the process goes all the way up the line, really, doesn't it?
Basically, yes, in that case, yeah. Goes up until some guy can prove that
But he wasn't
or whatever.
pushing down there.
I mean, it comes down to the fact of what you can prove in the room. Now, you know, we had a case. We were in Russia one year for the Pre-Olympics, and for various reasons, I ended up being the team captain, and we came in after the first race, and the 470s had been out. They were inside us. We'd sailed out beyond them and sailed their race and came back. And when we came back, they were still firing general recoil guns, and, you know, bang bang, you know, off the link. And I said to the boys, we had two teams over there. We had a couple of young kids and a couple of very experienced guys. And I said to the guys, I said, well, you know, what's going on here? And this was a team meeting that night. And they said, oh, all the guys have got a high field lever on their rudder. And they pull the high field lever up, and the 470s have one of these hinged rudders like this. So they just pull the high field lever, pull their rudder up, and they just scull up with the start line. And I said, well, you know, why don't you protest them? And they said, oh, well, it's no good because no one will be a witness because they all do it. You know? And I said, well, where's Geetsy? Oh, he's down the boat harbour putting a high field lever to his rudder. Anyway, fortunately, we had an Australian jurist at that stage, a guy called John Crosby, and I ran into him a little later on. I said, John, you know, you've got a problem here, this is what's happening. He said, oh, we'll fix that. So the next day they put a jury boat here, problem disappeared instantly. They disqualified about 15 boats the next day, and it didn't happen again. So you know, the problem is you've got to be able to prove it in the room, and that's often not as easy as it should be. Right, any other questions?
That hasn't helped me win races.
Well, I mean, the start is It's just so important as far as winning races is concerned. The better you can not sail, the better you can hold your position on the start line, the better start you'll get every time. So when you're fiddling around waiting for the stupid PRO to get his bum into gear and press the button, go and find a buoy and nosy up to it and see how long you can stay there.
I mean, years ago we used to have, I think when Van Dawson started it, we used to have about 15 minutes of practicing starts.
Yes.
Sail up to the top buoy, then we go back and do the same again.
Well, we used to in those days, we actually put a box in.
Yeah.
Barging board.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a box.
But we used to practice, you know.
The idea was to sail into the box and see how long you could stay in there. That was good practice. Yeah. It was just a practice.
So that's all for the starts, the finishes.
For the footy.